Hello and welcome to MensNet. My name is Tony Nazzaro, producer of MensNet, and I'll be your host for tonight's program. Roy has the night off. Tonight is our most frequent topic, divorce. The title of the show, Divorce 101, Early Do's and Don'ts. And we have an exceptional panel to discuss this. I want to introduce Mr. Stephen Metzger. Stephen is a father's advocate and has done the show many times. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Tony. Nice to be back.
Mr. Efrain Rodriguez, president of the Fathers' Rights Association, New York State. Efrain has also been a constant contributor to MensNet. Welcome, Efrain.
Thank you for having me.
And joining us almost for the first time, Maria, you did a show with us at the Father's Day Parade up in Poughkeepsie.
That's correct.
Maria Rauch, and you understand you're the president of the Dutchess County Fathers' Rights Association.
That's correct.
And you actually hold support group meetings for men going through divorce.
Every month we do.
It's a very unusual position for a woman.
Well, there's always two sides to a story. So you have to be objective, and we might as well have the family side of the story, so I could at least give some input.
Very
I'm happy
good.
to be here.
Okay. Before we get going, I want to read a quote from a book a friend of mine wrote, Mr. Richard Doyle. Quote, the first thing a man should do when a divorce appears likely is to obtain counseling from an organization equipped and competent to provide it. He shouldn't ignore divorce papers, as many do, hoping they will go away. An ostrich sticking his head in the sand gets shot in the ass in the end.
So true.
So keeping that in mind, I also want to bring out my personal experience when I was faced with the suddenness and the surprise of a divorce. I went to a friend of mine in Brooklyn, and he told me three things that were invaluable. Not to have a confrontation, verbal or physical, with my spouse, of course. Do not abandon the home, because the courts might look down on that. And number three, remove any hunting rifles that you might have, which could possibly be used against you as a false accusation that you made a threat. So what do you think about that advice, Maria?
Those three pieces of information that he gave you was absolutely true. I would also probably add in there to get some professional counseling to help you cope through this.
Oh, yes.
And if there's children, to have them get some counseling as well to help them cope.
And not go to an attorney for any type of counseling.
No, I mean professional counseling, therapy.
Right.
To get you through this and help you cope with each of the steps.
Yeah, the reason I mention that is in my own case and other people I've talked to, when they first go to an attorney, they look at the attorney like it's their father.
That's true.
They need a shoulder to cry on, and so here you are, trying to bring out your emotions to someone who could care less about your emotions.
It's interesting you speak about attorneys as the first topic. The number one thing that we tell men when they pick or choose to go to an attorney is make sure that the attorney is versed in family law.
That's true.
Make sure that they are articulate, adept, and local. Local is the key. That they know the court, they know the judge, they know the court clerk. They're not an outsider or a carpetbagger. My particular case, my divorce was in Putnam County, and I hired somebody from Suffolk County. That in and of itself caused me to pay 6 hours extra in attorney fees just for travel. So that added enormous to my bill. But we always advocate that you find out from the Bar Association whether or not the attorney you're about to hire is versed in family law, in divorce law.
Especially divorce.
And do not hire a friend. Don't hire the guy who did your house closing. Don't hire the guy who did your slip and fall. No. And don't hire the guy that wrote your will.
You would admit, though, Efrain, that it's still a crapshoot, because unless you go to the Bar Association or a father's rights group and get a referral, it's pretty much, you don't know, and most people don't know a divorce attorney. So they go to a perfect stranger. Steve, has that been?
Yeah, well, of course, that's a tactical move, and I think really the biggest the biggest problem that I've seen when counseling many guys going through this is their total lack of mental preparation for this. Now, you've struck on that issue a little bit.
That is true, absolutely.
But I'm talking about the ability to set goals, the ability to say, what do I want out of this divorce, given the fact that I'm going to have one. May not want it, but I mean, if I'm going to have one, what are my goals? Because once you set those goals, and then you say, well, here's my primary goals, and here maybe are some secondary goals. Those I can compromise on, but these goals, the three of them here, I will not compromise on. Mm-hmm. That gives your attorney, I don't care who he is, a clear blueprint of what he is supposed to get for you.
That's true.
And I have known how many guys that I have talked to when they complain about their attorney, and then I talk to their attorney, come to find out the guy has waffled back and forth on one objective after another, and the attorney basically doesn't know what to do, so he takes over the case.
That's true. And one piece of information is we asked the guys to Steve's point, to get a checklist. It might be so overwhelming that unless you break it down into pieces and have a checklist, do each step one by one, but also make sure that your attorney is on the same page as you and that both of you are a team. You want to make sure that you're a team.
And you're talking about the division of property here mostly. Is
Anything.
That what you're talking
it doesn't
about?
matter. You want to make sure that you and your attorney are a team. If they're not going to, you hire an attorney, you fire an attorney.
Right.
If they're not going to be working with you and for you, if they're not on the same mindset as you, then it's not going to work.
Well, what other goals would there be other than property, Steve?
Well, before,
custody, I mean,
well, custody would be one.
Visitation, maybe?
Well, no, the biggest issue would be well, in New York State is a fault state. Let's get that out there. There's only 6 grounds for divorce in New York State. My favorite one is adultery, which no one can ever prove, but people want to get their pound of flesh and say, well, she cheated on me or he cheated on me. A year later, when nobody has proof, the divorce now goes to what's called abandonment or constructive abandonment. The others are incarceration, death. Stipulation agreement or agreement for a settlement, or cruel and inhuman treatment. There's no such thing as he wrecked my car, I want a divorce, or I just can't live with him anymore. Those types of divorces, there is a kit people can get from the court.
Yes, I obtained
it's
that.
called the uncontested divorce kit. If you two can work this out yourself, then you can go to court and you can get a divorce and it'll cost you maybe $400 and you don't have to spend thousands. However, if you want to go in and go to the roses or go to the mattress, as it were, be ready to spend thousands. And you have to have grounds of some sort. Now, one thing that we also tell guys at our meetings is there's no such thing, when you spoke about custody, Steve, there's no such thing as joint custody.
No.
In New York State?
True.
In
Joint
New York
custody.
State, no
That's right.
judge can award a couple joint custody unless they agree to it.
That's true.
But also, even if there's joint custody, somebody has to be the primary parent
For child support
for
purposes.
child support purposes. So even if you have joint legal custody, unless you're the primary parent, you're going to pay child support.
So the court doesn't want to hear that you and your ex made a deal outside of the court system as
No,
to
no.
what to
You
pay.
can, as long as they put it in writing and incorporate it into your order then.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. If you and your ex can get along that well and can create a settlement, a stipulation, whatever you want to call it, and it's a contract.
Right.
You really need to submit it into court, pay for the index number if it's a divorce, or submit it as a legal separation agreement, so that it is a legal document in the court's eyes. So you can do that, right?